Now to another scandal still haunting Democrats. Today, Biden's White House physician, family friend, and business partner, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, just pleaded the Fifth on Capitol Hill. O'Connor was subpoenaed in the ongoing House probe into Biden's mental and physical decline and the cover-up that ensued. This is the same physician that gave Biden glowing health reports in writing throughout his presidency. Keep in mind, pleading the Fifth is not an admission of guilt. But also keep in mind, according to a 2022 post from anti-Trump zealot, Congressman and forever Nepo baby Dan Goldman, quote, "You don't take the Fifth if you didn't do anything wrong." Here now with more, former White House physician and Texas Congressman Ronny Jackson, along with Democratic strategist Doug Schoen. Okay, you're a White House physician under President Trump. We worked together, Congressman Jackson. Let me ask you a couple questions. See if you can answer them, or you're going to take the Fifth on live TV. Were you ever asked to lie for President Trump about his health?
I was not, Kellyanne.
There you go. And did anything ever give you pause in terms of his ability to do the job?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, these are two core questions that Dr. O'Connor was asked today. Under subpoena, right behind my shoulder in the U.S. Congress, and he took the Fifth. Dr. Jackson, Congressman Jackson, tell us about the role of the White House physician and how you think Dr. O'Connor either served his client well, his patient well, or frankly has lied to the country.
Well, I think he's lied to the country. I don't think he served the president well. I think that he was part of this cover-up, and I think today just is evidence that this cover-up really does exist. It did happen. There was an active effort to cover up the president's cognitive abilities and his cognitive decline, and that couldn't have happened without Kevin O'Connor. There are key people that just can't happen without. The physician to the president is with the president almost every day. And obviously, he puts out the annual physical exam and comments on these things. And without his being complicit in this cover-up, along with Joe Biden and Anthony Bernal and all these other folks that were working in and around the president on a regular basis, this could have never happened. And so it was a huge disservice to this country. The physician of the president has several roles. One is to be the physician for the president, but also has a responsibility to the country. And I think he completely abandoned his responsibility to the country. He had a responsibility at some point to go through the proper channels and to address this issue, and he didn't. And now he's being given an opportunity to come clean about it and tell us what he did, and he's not doing it. And that just tells me that he's covering something up still, and that he's worried about his own guilt in all of this. And like you said, I just don't think that he would plead the Fifth unless he's hiding something that could come back to personally haunt him.
And Dr. Jackson, just quickly saying with that, do you believe, as former White House physician for President Trump, that there are questions you can answer that would not violate the doctor-patient privilege?
Well, I absolutely do. And they had a whole bunch of questions. I helped the committee come up with the questions. We had hours and hours of questions, and many of them were of that category where it had nothing to do with patient provider privilege. However, I will say that both the AMA and HIPAA have admitted or have basically said that you can be legally compelled in the right situation to violate the patient doctor privilege and share information on conversations that you had with your patient. Once he was subpoenaed, that legal process was in place. So he no longer could fall back on the patient provider privilege, and that's why he ended up pleading the Fifth. And President Trump, you remember, also freed him of his presidential
executive privilege
ability to not do it because executive, exactly. So he had every opportunity today to set things straight and to be honest with the American people, and he failed to do so.
Doug Schoen, you're such a shrewd political analyst, a famed pollster. Do people care about this? And what about the Democrats' argument that this is the past? I mean, do you think that this is something the Democrats should reckon with to move forward?
You know, Kellyanne, I wanted to believe that it was the past. But the facts that have come out, as Dr. Jackson said, are so egregious about Joe Biden's competence, but also the White House physician deciding that the patient-physician privilege attaches to the question of, did you lie? Were you asked to lie? I mean, this has nothing to do with patient privilege. It has to do with basic truth and decency. I tend to think that we have a big issue here of who was running the country, what did Joe Biden know, and what didn't he know? And these are fair questions that are only, in my mind, made much worse, Kellyanne, by what happened today.
And Doug, just quickly, do you think the Democrats running for president in 2028 should have to answer the question as to why they insisted Joe Biden had the acuity, ability, agility to perform the job, what they knew, what they saw, or can they sort of skate past this?
I think they should do that. I think they should all take physical and mental competence tests and release the results without any hesitation to the public for reasons that should be obvious.
Doug Schoen and Congressman and White House physician Ronny Jackson, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.